Ladies and gentlemen, it is your boy back with another banger, absolute banger of South African political drama that honestly has me more invested than most Netflix shows. Maybe even more than Squid Game Season 3, and that's when you know this is good. Today we're talking about the Democratic Alliance dropping what I can only describe as a political nuke on the ANC with the new Economic Inclusion for All bill. Never heard of that one, huh? And honestly, it's kind of cooking. So here's the situation that has me genuinely interested for once. The DA just looked at South Africa's Black Economic Empowerment Policies, also known as BEE, and said, yeah, this ain't it, Chief, and proposed replacing the entire system. How, you ask? Well, instead of basing economic empowerment on the color of your skin, they want to base it on poverty. Which, and hear me out here, actually makes sense. I know, I'm just as shocked as you are that a political party proposed something logical. Now, before we go any further, we also need to talk about why BEE exists in the first place. South Africa had apartheid, which, if you don't know, was basically government sanctioned racism cranked up to 11 for decades. So, when that ended, they needed ways to address the massive economic inequality that resulted from generations of oppression because it was real and it was there. That's where BEE came in. It was supposed to help black South Africans get economic opportunities they were systematically denied on purpose. And on paper, that sounds great. In practice, well, see, the thing is, that's where things get spicy. The DA came out swinging like Floyd Mayweather with some absolutely brutal statistics. They're saying that 44 million South Africans are stuck in poverty. 44 million, which proves that BEE has failed harder than my last attempt at cooking an Israeli dish. The rate of unemployment for black South Africans has gone from 36% to I don't know how much. 30 million black South Africans are living below the poverty line. So that means there are more South Africans who are poor than South Africans who can actually afford a loaf of bread today. And if you thought that's traumatizing, here's where it gets absolutely wild. The DA straight up called BEE state sponsored corruption and claimed it's been used as a feeding trough for the ANC's cronies, which is the most savage political call out I've heard in a minute. Like Trump telling all the nations supporting Palestine they were going to hell. The DA said, hey, this system that was supposed to help poor people has just been making rich politicians richer. And you know what? When you actually look at those poverty statistics, it's kind of hard to argue with that assessment. The brilliance of their proposal is that it cuts straight through all the nonsense like a hot knife through butter and goes straight to the actual problem: poverty. Because here's the thing: if you're poor, you're poor. It doesn't matter what race you are, being broke is universally terrible. Everybody knows how that feels. By switching from a race based system to a poverty based system, you're actually helping the people who need help instead of potentially helping people who are already doing fine but happen to check the right demographic boxes. Their new system, though, would assess bidders across five categories. Listen closely: human development, economic empowerment, environmental sustainability, inclusive communities and governance, and a mixed impact option. It's like they actually sat down and thought about what would make things genuinely better instead of just slapping a band aid on a gunshot wound and calling it fixed. Revolutionary stuff, apparently. They're also including disqualification criteria to keep out bidders with records of fraud, corruption, or misrepresentation, which seems like nothing that should have been there from the start, but I guess better late than never, right? It's like finally putting a lock on your door after your house has been robbed 17 times. Now, here's where this gets absolutely hilarious. The DA is in a coalition government with the ANC right now. They're supposed to be working together. They're supposed to be governing the country in harmony. All that fun stuff like yin and yang. And the DA just basically said, your entire economic policy is trash and we're replacing it. That's the political equivalent of telling your roommate their cooking sucks while you're both eating dinner. The audacity is genuinely impressive. The ANC is obviously not going to be thrilled about this. You can't just tell your coalition partner that their flagship policy is nothing but a corrupt feeding scheme without expecting some spicy responses. This is setting up what might be the most entertaining political drama South Africa has seen in some time. And I'm here for all of it because you cannot expect to not have any source of criticism while you've been running the country like a turkey the entire time. What's even more interesting is that the DA is addressing the elephant in the room while everyone else in the coalition government who knows about it doesn't want to talk about it. BEE was supposed to help the people who were disadvantaged. Okay? Disadvantaged by apartheid and afterwards. But if 30 million black South Africans are still living in poverty 31 years later, something clearly went very, very wrong. Either the policy doesn't work, or it's been corrupted beyond recognition, or both. Probably both. The thing is, helping poor people regardless of race is not some radical idea. They are not Einsteins for coming up with that. It's actually the most straightforward approach to addressing poverty that exists. You find people who are struggling financially, help them as a government. Crazy concept, I know. But apparently in politics, straightforward solutions are considered revolutionary. Like Malema doing the One Africa speech, everyone thought he was a genius. Will this bill actually pass? Who knows? Politics is weird, and nothing makes much sense anymore. But at least someone is proposing something that addresses the actual problem instead of just doing the same thing that hasn't worked for decades and expecting different results. The definition of insanity itself by Albert Einstein. No pun intended. That's literally the definition of insanity, by the way. The real test will be whether this can get through Parliament without getting watered down into uselessness or blocked entirely by the ANC. But hey, at least the DA is swinging for the fences instead of just accepting the status quo of poverty and corruption. But anyway, that's all I wanted to talk to you about. I'll see you next time.